All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Step into the Portal. Thank you for joining me here. I'm in a new location on a new computer, so if anybody is out there and can let me know that sound is good, video is good, all those things, that would be greatly appreciated. I am actually here for people who have watched the channel for a little while. I am here in my dining room, gaming room, and this is where I was kind of during COVID and whatnot, if you will, all those kind of things. So I am here to do my top 10 solo games of all time. And I figured it'd be fun for people to peep, like, what games does Brandt have in his house? You can see this one here is Kapow, which is designed by some local designers in Connecticut. So I'll point that one out for you. And you can ask me questions about other things you see as we go along. Thank you, Rocket Magnet UK, who says the audio and video are fine. Awesome. So I'm going to do my top 15 because I was going through looking for 10 and I found 15 games that I really enjoy playing solo. So I said, well, nothing says you have to do top 10. I'm actually not going to physically take my games off the shelves. I'm going to use Board Game Geek to help me go through this. Now, I will caveat. So you'll hear me often say this, which I thought was a good reason to do this. Like, solo gaming is not my preferred form of gaming. So I just want to be careful of making that sound like I don't like solo gaming or solo gaming shouldn't exist or something like that. It absolutely should. It's so good for people that don't have a gaming partner, gaming group, gaming store, or just don't have the same, social necessity that I do. I absolutely enjoy playing games with people. That's one of the big parts that I like to do, which is why I stream so much so that I have people with me as part of that. So that's a big caveat for me. So I'm not necessarily looking to play solo. So when I do play solo, I want it to be something that gives me a different experience. I have games of all varieties on this list. Score your best points, play a solo opponent, have a win condition. There's all sorts of different things that I have on the list. But in general, that win condition is something that I really do enjoy overall. So that would be the idea there. All right. Thank you, everybody. If you have questions, you can let me know. However, I will say that I am bouncing between different spots, so it may be a little bit tricky for me. Actually, you know what I should do is I should set up my phone so that I can see the chat and things as well. I won't hear myself. All right. So away we go. All right, so I've picked out 15. They're in order. They're roughly in order. I mean, it's really, I want to highlight 15 games that I think are really enjoyable for playing solo. And like I said, they run a whole different gamut. So I'm going to use the Board Game Geek website. That way I can click you through some pictures and things without having to drag each game down off my shelf and whatnot. A few of them are actually packed in my car, I think. So it'd be a little trickier on that front. So, all right, here we go. So my 15th favorite game, it's kind of an interesting one. I've only played a handful of times, but it was just so interesting that I really wanted to highlight this out. So it's Concordia, but specifically it's Concordia Solitaria. So this is a solitaire mode for Concordia that allows you to play against an AI opponent who will use these dice. Um, and what is so interesting in this game is that you choose actions on a variety of cards, but then your opponent also picks actions, but they essentially pick the opposite of what you're doing. So instead of picking the thing that you are doing, they pick a strategy that's almost opposite to what you are doing. So yeah, you can see these cards down here and whatnot. So you're playing these cards to the table, you're drafting these cards. The board does look bland. I mean, it's full of color, but it's definitely like a point scoring game, and you are competing against an opponent who's scoring points as well. But I just really found that part so interesting. Oops. Um, I found it so interesting and engaging where the opponent does the opposite of you. I've actually mostly played this co-op, so I've done the solo kind of to learn and everything, but the solo works essentially the same way. Okay, my dog also wants to be part of this, and she's going to knock the camera all around. So, hello, Isabel. All right, she's going to sit here, hopefully quietly. All right. Um, So Concordia, which is one of my favorite games of all time, and I never really cared for a solo mode. I picked this one up and I was absolutely floored. Hello, Josh. Thanks for joining us as well. So you can check this one out. Let me give you some quick pictures of Concordia, just so you can see some of those cards. Oh, I'm going to be so slow about this. That's okay. We've got a little while. We don't have to fly through this. So you'll see some videos. I'm trying to just click on Concordia. Maybe if I go to full credits, expands on Concordia. Okay, show me Concordia. All right, so here's Concordia. It is well known for not having an amazing cover. I mean, the game itself doesn't even necessarily look amazing. That's a cool shot with all the pieces, but you're basically going out and you're building cities. You're putting these cities down, and you have to pay more the more players that are on them. So that is what your opponent is completing against you. What is so cool in this game is you're playing your cards, and I'm trying to find some cards. I should probably go to like the bigger image. Do, do, do. Will they ever show me a card? Here we go. So you're playing these cards, and you're going to do the effect on the card. Sometimes it has two different effects. And then the bottom here is how you're going to score. I think you can see my mouse with me doing that. So this bottom piece will show you how you're going to score, and then you score everything at the end of the game. You pick up all of your cards. It's not really a deck builder; it's a hand builder. There's one card, the Tribune, that'll reset, and then these are telling you the different ways to score, and then you score your points and see where you are. So it kind of has a little bit of that like, where am I? How am I doing? I don't know exactly kind of feeling to it. All right, so that's my number 15, Concordia. My number 14 is another oddball. It is Through the Ages, and I don't think that this is so odd. Again, it's another game that I thoroughly enjoy playing with other people. But in this case, this one works incredibly well solo on the app. In fact, this is the only board game that I really enjoy playing on an app. That the app is where I'm looking to do. It's kind of fiddly. The fiddliness doesn't bother me. It's kind of a lot of setup. It's a lot of cards. It's a lot of tokens. But none of that honestly bothers me. It's just that the app is so darn smooth. So what'll happen is my wife and I'll play this game sitting on the couch next to each other on the app, or we'll take a train trip, yep, to New York City, and on the train we'll just sit and play Through the Ages. Now this is top solo game, so I guess talking about my multiplayer experiences, but so you can definitely check out that app. It was always like $9 or $10 or something, so it was relatively cheap. And obviously there'll be tons of videos and things for you to see. But this is a card drafting civilization game. What this game does so incredibly well is it forces you to pivot. So you get a strategy. So I get Joan of Arc here as my leader. My temples and my governments give me +1 strength for each of their happy faces. At the beginning of the politics phase, I can look at the top card of the current event. So I'm playing this thing where I know events, I'm triggering events, I'm reacting to events, I have strength, I'm building temples, and all of a sudden I have to pivot my strategy. I can't focus on that anymore. I now need to worry about military and other things because being strong in one category might not be the thing that I need to do. The solo game does miss out on these cooperative elements where you can kind of make pacts with other players and whatnot. Oh, hi, Eric. Yeah, this was Eric's idea to have me play this or to do this. So yeah, you've been telling me for a while, Eric, and I finally got my button gear, and it's kind of fun here. I got my dog in my lap and my games behind me. So there's that. Um, have I played it with salsa? I think so. I think I throw almost everything in. I apologize, I don't remember all the names for Concordia. I can't remember if I do the one with the fish market or the market. I can't remember what that one is. That's the one that's newest to me, and I've played it and not played it. We streamed it on the channel with that, but I tend to play sometimes without that one. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Josh is talking about not knowing about it. Yeah, it's a little box you can pick up, and it plays solo or two-player co-op. I don't think it plays beyond two-player co-op, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Yep. And the app is just so good for this game. So this is Lotta Chavatal and CG. I should say Concordia's Mac Gertz, and it is Rio Grande in North America that publishes that. I'll try my best on all of them. I don't have them, although we can look them up on here. So, that. Anyway, so here's these cards. You have all sorts of different event cards you can play. You have these buildings that you can build. These are kind of your wonders. And then you have aggressive events that are happening. And it's just an awesome, awesome game. It's really good. And I put it on here because specifically, like I said, that app just runs so smoothly. It's quite incredible, but you'll see Bill Gates and you've got governments with theocracy and different other pieces. So that is Through the Ages, a new story of civilization. It's essentially the third edition of this game, so it's gone through a lot. All right, my number 13 is a deck builder, and it is Shards of Infinity. So specifically, oh no, I think it's this one, Shadow of Salvation. Yes. All right. So it's just designed by Justin Gary and Ryan Sutherland. The publisher is Stoneblade Entertainment and also Ultra Pro. These are super cheap. If you haven't seen these, I know Steve brought this to Con of Heroes, and it was one of his favorite things that we got to play, or one of his favorite games to play. So we got to do that there and whatnot. Yeah, it would be good to have an app for Mage Knight. It is true. All right. So this created the regular game, Shards of Infinity, is a deck building battling game. So it's very akin to that new Star Wars deck building game that Caleb Grace designed that came out. It's very akin to Star Realms. Although the unique feature here is when you purchase a card from the market, some of them, and this is going to be the co-op. See, I really should just go to the base games for these. So anyway, you get to purchase cards from the market, and when you purchase them, some of them have this red border on them, which none of these do. Ah, this one does right here. So they have a red border. You could purchase this card, do its effect, and immediately remove it from your deck, essentially. You just play it from the row, from the market row. So these are the new cards that were in this set. And then in the co-op mode, you're battling through. It's really simple. It's only 3 different battles that you have to fight, and you make a choice each time. So we're battling this Moxai, and they've got a special ability, and then it's telling us as they level up. What's cool in Shards of Infinity, if you've never seen it before, is you have this power that you're powering up. The name eludes me at the moment. I'm usually pretty good with these things, but I'm getting older and I forget all the things that I'm usually remembering. But as you power this up, you get to certain thresholds and you get bonuses. And in fact, if you get yours to 30, you have an insta kill card. So it's really fun that it kind of gives you that goal. If you can play the long game, you can win out. When you defeat one of these enemies, you'll get like a bonus card. You'll add some baddies, and then you'll make another choice as to where you want to go. And then there's a final boss. So I think there's actually 5 bosses, if I remember correctly. And you pick one of two, and then fight the final boss. So the paths kind of vary. And so you could play it again and fight some different bosses the next time. It's very quick. It plays well. So solo, it's tricky to play one-handed, so you really have to play it essentially two-handed. So that would be a caveat to this. You can try to do it solo, but it will be a little bit tricky. I can't remember exactly. I remember playing it two-handed and whatnot, but it's a really neat version, and it's really fun. And I just love that I can just sit and play that whole campaign relatively quickly. So that is Shards of Infinity. My number 12 is, man, I feel like I'm really showing my range of playing games. This is Super Skill Pinball. We'll just go with the original. So Super Skill Pinball is from Jeff Engelstein, who I love. He does all these segments called Game Tech on the old Dice Tower podcast, and I use them all the time in my statistics classes. Super engaging, explaining statistics related elements, usually in games terms, but also in regular terms. So he does a great job with that. And then it's published by WizKids. And so this recreates pinball. Now, this works extremely well as a solo game. That is kind of the main intent. So you see you've got 4 different pinball arcades and whatnot. And you kind of work your way through them by rolling dice and making decisions. So you roll 2 dice and you pick... where was the one? Okay, so you can see your ball here. So your ball is kind of a half of a pinball, and you'll roll a die, and it moves downward. So this one actually have to move to the bottom section, but let's just say it was above. So let's say I rolled a 2 and a 6, so I could either cross out this 6, or I could cross out this 2, or this other bumper here, depending on where the sections with the blur. It's a little hard to see, but you're basically trying to knock out all these. So if I knock out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I'm going to get some kind of bonus that's over here generally. All the tables play different. and then this is going to score me a single point. So you're going for highest points. And you play 3 balls, so they'll fall down below. I'll see if I can find another table. It's a nice display. That's the Pegasus Spiel version. I guess I should really expand images. What? Is that all the images? Let's see if I click on that, if I can find something that works a little bit better. Da, 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 da. Here we go. All right, so we can see one of them here. So then you're going to see as you come down here and you hit this flipper, you have to pick a number. So you're dropping between these sections. It's pretty well labeled here. And you're dropping down between these sections, but eventually your kind of flipper power will run out. The ball might go down this side, and then you're going to lose your ball, and you're going to start over and shoot the ball up. And there's all sorts of bonuses. And then this one doesn't, but they tend to have a top section up here on the board that you can get into and unlock things. And they've made it in many different versions. In fact, if I put Super Skill Pinball over here, you'll see Ramp It Up. You'll see Star Trek. You'll see the Holiday Special. And I feel like there was another one they announced, but I don't remember what it is. So they've got all these different versions here. The Holiday Special one has Elf, and it has Christmas Story, and it has National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation in it. Excuse me. And that was one I wanted to play on the channel, so I may try to get it for next year and do that version. I think I have a play of the original version up on the channel. It's getting hard now with so many years going back. All right, so that is Super Skill Pinball, my number 12. My number 11 is a big old game, Maracaibo. So Maracaibo actually had a solo version in the box, and then it had an expansion, Maracaibo the Uprising, and there's a new solo version. So you can see Maracaibo is a game I rate very highly. Oh, I did mean to mention, on Super Skill Pinball, it works great with 2 players. When you get to 3 and 4, it can be a very long game. So I highly suggest playing 1 or 2 balls if you play with more players. But again, it's a solo list, so we're focusing on that. So Maracaibo is by Alexander Pfister, and it's published by, this says Games Up, but it's Capstone Games. I know in North America, we have a huge section of Capstone Games. They're a great publisher. So check them out. And it's essentially a rondel game. It followed up after Great Western Trail. So you're starting here, and you're traveling around the Caribbean and kind of sailing in this circle back and forth. And you can move really any number of spaces, at least one and any number on your turn. This is a much bigger, heavier game than a lot of the games that I said already. But when you get to a space, you have a hand of cards and different things that you can discard. So they have resources over here. And then you can also play these cards to kind of in a tableau in front of you. So it's a big tableau builder as well. But as I was saying on the board here, you're traveling around. When you get to spaces, you can upgrade your own personal board. So you've got a personal board that I'll try to find pictures of in a second. You're dropping these little brown discs to get bonuses on your boat, your ability to move faster, get more bonuses, benefits, and then you're also kind of battling. So, it certainly had kind of a weird theme here that you're, kind of moving around and you're battling amongst the Spanish, the French, and the English in this area. And so the uprising actually changed that thematically to, you are the people rebelling against the colonizers that came in. So that was neat. And then they created a whole solo system for you there. And the solo system runs off of a deck. And you are, fighting this other player who's also scoring points with you. I don't know that the solo is super unique in this game. The game is just very compelling and the solo works. But they added multiple modes in there, and so there's different ways you can play it solo with the uprising. So I still suggest it for solo in the base game, but specifically for solo, you're probably going to want the other one. And they upgrade your boards and whatnot. I'm trying to see if I can find a ship board down here. Oh, here's a good picture of it. So yeah, you got your ship board here with these discs, and as you can remove these discs, you'll unlock the bonuses. This is going to give me 5 coins. This is going to give me the ability to purchase cards from the row for free. Whatnot. And so you're doing some deck building alongside all of those other things. I'm going to try to move this up here so I can see everybody. Yes, it is a relatively long game. My wife and I probably have it down to close to 90 minutes now, but yeah, if you're going to play with 4, it's probably going to be a lot longer. Good morning, Canadian Mustache. Yeah, the solo plays really well. So that is Maracaibo, my number 11. Kind of in that same vein, although this one is hard. In the solo underwater city under whatever I said there. And this one also has an expansion. You really don't need the expansion. It was pretty pricey expansion. It added dual layer boards and other things. But as far as solo, you really can just play this straight out of the box. So Underwater Cities is designed by Vladimir Suhi and from Delicious Games, which is his publishing company, and then also Rio Grande in North America. So this has got these cool domes, and this is very akin to terraforming Mars in that you're building up a tableau and you're building up a city, but everybody has their own. So it's different, and there isn't drafting. The other key part is it is worker placement. Um, and I am forgetting the solo mode off the top of my head. Uh, all of a sudden. I can't remember exactly how the solo mode works in this. I just think of it as one of those games that I've enjoyed a whole bunch. You're trying to score at least 100 points and have various conditions. You're adding these elements to your board. This is kind of the solo mode setup. And then these are your worker placement spots. The game I know very well. The solo, like I said, is escaping me exactly what the function is there. But I'm not so much focusing on, oh, this is how it functions solo and otherwise. So you can grab these cards, which are going to be your end of game cards. And then what's so interesting is you place one of your workers, which are kind of these submarine doors, and they have your color on them. This is the purple player. You place one of these out on one of these spaces, you get the benefit of the space, and in addition, you play a card from your hand. And the cards are going to be the various colors as well. Trying to find some cards. Cards. Nobody takes pictures of cards. So the cards are going to be a variety of pictures or colors, and if the color of the card you play matches the color of the space, then you get the benefit on your card as well. So you generally want to do it every time. I think there's some ways to still gain benefits otherwise, but you'll see a variety of cards here. And so then you can do whatever this is. Now, what they did nicely on the cards is the up above is showing you kind of in icons what it does, and down below in words. So this is not like it's not overwhelming in that these are two different things. So if I play this red card on the turn that I go to a red space, I also get these benefits. So you're building up this tableau to get different benefits and do other things, and then build up your personal board so that you can attach other things. Wow, look at this in prototype. It's neat to see. And yeah, I mean, it's just that quintessential, build everything up and try to score a whole bunch of points. And like I said, it's relatively tricky to get yourself there. Here's a good picture of a player board. Nope, this looks like the early prototype board because it looks different now. I don't know what that is. Something somebody made. Anyway, you're gathering all these resources and turning them in, and again, trying to score points, but it is just full of amazing decisions and trying to play those cards in the right order and increasing your hand size and all sorts of things. So that is Underwater Cities. All right, my number 9 is probably more akin to what people would think of when they think of me, which is card games. So this is Imperial Settlers Empires of the North. Now, interestingly enough, I have it here. There it is. Wrath of the Lighthouse is down there. And that is the solo expansion, which apparently has a lot of issues with it. And I haven't jumped in, I haven't seen an FAQ. I did pick it up because I like this game so much. This is designed by Joanna Kajanka and Ignacy Trebicek from Portal Games. Hey, Portal Games. Not us. We're the Portal. but close in the name. And this is kind of a follow up to their Imperial Settlers, and this has an amazing solo mode in it where you're playing various missions. They've got a whole book with solo. You can go on their website and find a whole bunch where they'll tell you you need to reach this score threshold. You start with these resources, and you're playing factions. And so this has variety. And if you know me, variety is the spice of life. So you've got a whole variety of factions that you're playing out on the board, and then you're playing these little worker placement tokens, kind of. You can play cards on your turn. You kind of get single action turns, or you can put these tokens out, and then you can actually even flip them over by moving them to an adjacent space on this wheel. And then you're going to set sail to voyage to these locations to pick up these islands and things over here. And in the solo mode, yeah, it'll just tell you like, oh, block this space and you only get so many actions till you run out of things, and then you're drawing these little tokens from the bag that are going to give you kind of little minor events. Oh, you lose an apple, or you gain something, or this space is now blocked, or discard one card that's available. What happens in Empires of the North that's different from Imperial Settlers is essentially almost everything comes from your deck. So you have individual factions, and then they have faction expansions. So I believe there were 6 in the box, and then 3 expansions that had 2 each. So that gives us 12 total factions. The whole North thing went out the window because they've got like Japan and Rome and all sorts of other places that I guess are North, um, but not as northern as the kind of the original ones started. So there's that. Do I have a favorite faction for this one? And thank you, Michael, for the help with Underwater Cities. Um, you know, had you I did a bunch of them. So I think the last time that I filmed this game, I was here in this room at this table. So it's been a little while that I've played those factions. So honestly, it's hard for me to remember what all of them do. And some of the newer ones were kind of interesting. So I am bagging out on that. But you could ask me that question again sometime when I get a chance to look some of them up, and I'll try to remember what some of the factions were and what they did. I just off the top of my head, it's hard to remember. If I pulled out the cards and started looking, I bet, oh right, this one does this one does this one does this, and whatnot. But I can't remember exactly off the top of my head which ones were kind of my favorites. I remember there was like a Scottish clan that could like make beer and they would get the coins, which is wild resources or something. Um, and the Japanese faction like could use other people's cards or something in the game. But yeah, it's not coming to me quickly. So, all right, let's see if they have a picture of the solo. Do they have that solo book anywhere? Maybe this is a solo one. Yeah, here you go. So, Island Insurrection. The islands you thought to pillage and conquer have decided to fight back and launch a preemptive strike. So, you're going to draw these during setup. You're going to have these rules changes, and then these events are going to happen based on the tokens. And then you have to get to 45 points, as you can see there. Let's see. Does it tell us the factions that are in this box? It doesn't. And let's see what the expansions are. Which is if I go here. No. Where does it tell us expansions on here? Oh well, we talked about it a bunch. So it's a card game. You're going to be playing for those points, and they're going to have events that happen. And there's also a solo campaign, which I guess has some errors. So I guess I would warn you ahead until they do a reprint or something that it might be something you want to avoid. I need to dive into it at some point, though. All right. Next up, man, I remember playing this one at on the floor in a hotel room at the New York Toy Fair. So it must have been in 2016, maybe it was 2017, if this is when this came out. But One Deck Dungeon is so cool. So this is a game where you literally have one deck, you're flipping over cards, and you're rolling dice, and you're highly, highly, highly mitigating the dice. You're trying to defeat. Now this is a boss, but at least it'll give us some idea. So here I would need to place a 4 yellow, 4 or higher, I believe. This would be a 3 or higher, a blue, pink, and then over here I think this means I can place any dice. Now if a space is larger like this, I could place any number of blue dice here, and I need to get a 17. This is the final boss, so it's a little bit different. When you're playing the game, you'll flip over other cards. Yeah, Wrath of the Lighthouse, that's the one. And so on these ones, you'll need to place multiple dice, and then you're mitigating. You also get these black dice, which are wild, and then you get a character. Can I zoom in? Oh, I can. All right, so you get a character here, and there's a 1-player side and a 2-player side. So this is only solo or 2-player, and this is going to tell you the dice you're going to roll. So this character has 5 hit points. They roll 2 yellow, 3 pink, and 2 blue dice, and then you've got abilities down here. So you can see they're upgrading their abilities. Actually, this one down here, they've got this static burst upgraded ability. So I can spend a blue 4 and gain a yellow 4 and a pink 4. So not only are you manipulating dice, like then increase one of your dice by 1, but you're also gaining other dice and all sorts of abilities. You get potions that you can use for various abilities here. And then your main enemy, in addition to just your health, or your main factor, is time. And so whenever you get time against you, you have to discard cards off the deck, and you have to go through so many levels of the dungeon. 3 is what pops off the top of my head. And once you go through the deck 3 times, then you have to fight the boss. But the deck is getting smaller and smaller because you're pulling cards out, and then you're doing this, and you're kind of laying like a set of cards in front of you. How do I not enlarge it? Yeah, so you got the deck, and then here's the various obstacles and enemies. So you can see them putting the dice on here, and it's just an amazing puzzle with so many possibilities. You never know if you're making the right decision. And yeah, here's the boss. This is actually the boss card tucked under the reference card. And as that's leveling up, or as you're getting deeper in the dungeon, you're adding abilities from the boss to make it harder. And then this is telling you how you're going to level up. And every time you defeat one, you can either gain it as a skill or as experience. Um, or there's a third thing. It might be that you can get a potion, and then you have your potions down here as to what they can do. So really, really cool game. I also just recently I got back from PAX Unplugged, and I played One Deck Galaxy, which was surprisingly different. And I think I did a really good teach on there, and I don't think I made a lot of mistakes. And so a lot of people were watching that video because the rule book was a little bit unclear. Although I have to say that the company had put an FAQ up that I read, but I think a lot of people didn't realize it was there with some clarification purposes. So you can check this one out. I don't know if I've played this one on the channel. See, this is the fun of solo games. Like, oh, I could play this on the channel. That would be fun too. But there you go. That is One Deck Galaxy, and I did not mention the publisher, which is Asmadi Games, and it's designed by Chris Cieslik. So there you go. That is that one. All right, we keep going. I don't have these in order on my sheet, so I apologize. No, no. Number seven is So this is one of my favorite games of all time. In fact, this is one of those ones that might move up higher. And this is Gaia Project. So Gaia Project is the sequel. This is Jens Drogelmeyer and Helga Ostertag, excuse me. And it's published by Fourland Spiel, and now it's also Capstone Games in North America. This is a follow-up to Terra Mystica, so if you like fantasy better, you may enjoy Terra Mystica a little bit more. If you like space, you might like this one. I think Gaia Project is the better game, although my wife vastly likes fantasy better. Terra Mystica is tricky to play at too. But anyway, Gaia Project has a solo mode in it. Terra Mystica did not. I actually have not played the Terra Mystica solo mode. I never picked that up. There's like a big box for Terra Mystica, and I was going to do that, but I found out they're making a more complex Terra Mystica, so I think I'm going to go that route at Gen Con this year. So anyway, Gaia Project has a solo mode, and this is the best solo mode I think I've ever played. It is so good. It makes you feel like you're playing an opponent. It does all sorts of different things. It's tricky to learn. You can see that this game, wow, this game already is a 4.4 weight. And the solo mode is difficult to learn, but if it's a game you enjoy, you will really like this. I actually just taught this last week. This past weekend, I taught Gaia Project at a friend's house to 3 new players, and it took us a while with the teach and everything. It was probably 3 hours, but man, like people still they loved it. They were like, "This is heavier than probably what I normally like to play," but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, Gaia Project does a great job. Again, variety. There are 7 boards with different factions on them, and they can all be flipped over and with other factions. So you've got 14 factions you can play through. I believe the solo only does the 7 front side. You'll face one of those 7 factions. They all have like a way it works. And then what I love, what happens is you have a deck of cards, you flip it over, you have one card that's up, and I think it's telling you like the location of the action. Then you flip the other card, and there's an arrow, and they go together. I should do it this way. They go together like this, and the 2 cards together tell you what's going to happen that turn and kind of how to do things. It's a big, um, it's a big difference. It's a big, it's a lot to learn for the solo mode, but I think getting past the barrier is worth it. Again, if Gaia Project is something you played, but maybe not the solo mode. Um, I have no idea about learning the game with the solo mode. Like if you're gonna pick it up to play it solo, I think it's totally worth it. Like I said, it's one of the best solo modes I've ever played and whatnot. But I don't know about learning it with that. But you can check out plays all over. I have a play on the channel. You can see Peter has several plays on One Stop Co-op Shop, and I'm sure there's plays all over the internet that you could use, and maybe some people who break down the rules even a little bit better. Really, once you get past how do I place a mine, you've got most of the game down. So that's your first action that you learn, and it has a whole bevy of things that go with it. And it's the first action you have to learn how the automa does it. Once you get it down for you and for the automa, the other actions are relatively easy. That's the tricky spot. But then the choices are amazing and whatnot. Solo, it's not going to be super long. Again, once you know all of that, the solo game doesn't take that long to play. It might be an hour or something like that, but it's really neat. Yeah, and there was also another version of Terra Mystica called Terra Nova that Eric was referencing here in the chat. And Terra Nova is actually the lighter version of Terra Mystica. So you can play Terra Mystica where they strip some of it out. I haven't found that. I haven't found that like I need a welcoming game or a gateway game for people to get into Terra Mystica. Generally, Terra Mystica and Gaia Project is something I'm teaching people who are kind of already gamers and are already down to play it. It's not something I'm teaching to newer people. So I've just kind of used other games. I haven't tried Terra Nova yet. I wasn't sure that it was something I'd want to own when I already have these two versions. Terra Mystica is probably behind me. No. Oh, it's up there. You might not be able to see it. Cool. All right. So that is a Gaia Project. Honestly, one of my favorite games. I really like this one. In fact, when I'm seeing this as 7, I'm like, I think this might actually be higher. But again, it's just to talk about 15 games. The next one is out of print, so I apologize. And this is Heroes of Terranoth. And there's also the Warhammer Quest game. So this is designed by the Sadler brothers and published by Fantasy Flight Games. If you can track down a copy and it's not overly expensive, I think it's worth it. I assume it was probably 40 or maybe 50 in today's market. So if you're somewhere around there, it's probably a decent price, to pay 50, 60, $70 for this. But if it's out of print, it's double this price. There's other games you can find that do this kind of thing really well. But this is a card game where you're playing with a party. So you play with a whole party of heroes. Then you just divide them up amongst the players. And they all have different ways they can level up. And there's tons of different missions. It is not campaign based. I think Warhammer Quest was. I believe Warhammer Quest had an expansion. Ooh, this is hard going back and trying to remember. But I don't know that Heroes of Terranoth ever had an expansion. So you're playing as this variety of heroes, and in fact, in each class, there's multiple characters in each class with multiple special abilities, and they change their health, and then you get cards, and then you're shuffling up kind of little packets. So it's almost like the modular sets in Marvel Champions, and you're taking these modular sets and shuffling them together, and then you've got a sheet for each of them. And again, it's not a campaign. You can kind of play a story out if you play them through, but they're really just rated as easy, medium, hard, and super hard, if I remember. And you're going to move this little timer up, and a whole bunch of things are going to happen, and you're flipping cards. You're also trying to explore, so you're trying to get tokens on the locations, which was very akin to the Lord of the Rings card game. And then you're playing your character cards. And what's neat with your character cards, so these are the 4 character cards that everybody's going to have. That's what I was going to say. You only have 4 cards. Let's see if we can find them. So these are the level up. So the mage can either become a geomancer or a rune master, and then you'd pick one of these 2 cards for your explore card. And you've got different dice. And then if you have enemies in front of you, whenever you do an action, you roll an enemy die. I'm going to see if I can find the 4 different cards so you can see. But essentially you exhaust one of your 4 cards when you take your turn. And you do the actions on that card. And then, no. And then your next turn, well, we can see some of them here. Sorry, everybody. Can't find it. So you can see here's the Explore card, here's the Rest card, and the Rest card will typically tell you to ready all of your other cards when you do that. And then you're rolling dice, but the dice have, I think it's 1 miss, and everything else is a hit. And then it's got an exploding die side here, so that's really fun. And then the enemy die is this black one. So you're trying to deal damage to them and their effects, and they have a whole system that they trigger. And it's a little bit to learn, but then it's relatively smooth once you know that, and you're trying to get to the end of the quest, there's various things, and then a big bad comes out at the end you have to defeat basically in every single one. But there were a variety of them where it's just like you're going to get three little enemies every turn. You just have to kill them all. It's almost more like tower defense or something like that. Really neat. And the Warhammer Quest game was very similar. I think it must have been about the time that Fantasy Flight lost the Warhammer license, so they moved over to this system. And it plays really, now that I'm thinking about it, you don't have to play with all four heroes. So you can play it with two, I think is the minimum. So you have to play two-handed in solo. But honestly, it's not that hard. You only have four cards with each character. They're on the table. You don't have a hand of cards. So it's not really that much overload to control two characters, I don't think. Unless you're super against that. So that is my number 6, Heroes of Terranoth. All right, number 5. This is probably going to be the shocker. My number 5, which I assume most people would think is my number 1, is Marvel Champions. And this is an incredible game. This is designed by Michael Boggs and Nate French and Caleb Grace. And is published by Fantasy Flight Games as well. And it's an LCG. It's the only LCG that made my list. So in case you're wondering, I honestly love to put Lord of the Rings on here, but I just haven't played it. I did most of a campaign on the channel a little, like, kind of before they were doing all the reprinting. I did the Mines of Moria, Dwarodelf, whatever that cycle was. I did most of that, although I think I got stuck. And I haven't played a ton since. I played a little bit with the new repackaging and once or twice here and there, but it's not something I've come back to a whole bunch. So Marvel Champions is my favorite LCG. It's not my favorite solo game, although could it be number 1? Sure. Solo with one hero is not my favorite. I talked about a lot of games where I play 2, so I thoroughly enjoy playing this with 2. But honestly, I'm just at the point. So it's a weird thing to say, but I played 4,000 games of Marvel Champions because of playing so many rush and games that were 90 seconds and whatnot is really the reason that it's there. That the solo experience just isn't necessarily what I want to do with this game anymore. Certainly when something new comes out, I get excited and whatnot, but I really want to play with other people. You've seen Eric on there. You've seen other players. And whatnot. Okay, so there's some of the shock from people to redeem myself. Would I rate Champions as my favorite multiplayer game? No. So I think my favorite multiplayer game is Frosthaven. But honestly, Frosthaven and Marvel Champions are just an absolute dead heat. Marvel Champions is my favorite game, I think, and it's probably my favorite if I was in a pocket, but kind of Rahdo style. Frosthaven I play with my wife, and she specifically does not like Marvel Champions, so that kind of gives the edge to Frosthaven, which is sitting out here downstairs, always ready to be played. Unlike Marvel Champions, which is up in the attic and travels with me places and whatnot. So the solo game. So when I say it's imbalanced, I don't mean it's unplayable. I just mean the solo game it's a little swingier. It's harder to control things. Advance, stalwart, steady can really make it trickier. Or the reverse, where you can just stun and confuse your way to victory, and you don't get a lot of the interactions. A character like Rogue, a character like Hulk, a character like Valkyrie that really benefits from having another character in the game taking care of other things for them. It just becomes more interesting. So I talked about all these games that I'm playing two-handed. So what's the issue with playing this game two-handed? Well, there really isn't any. So if I went to the idea of this being two-handed, it probably moves higher up on the list or whatever. But it doesn't matter. It's absolutely phenomenal solo game. Buy it, play it solo. You won't have significant issues. Losing doesn't matter. Like, you play Rhino and you get 2 advances on a turn and you lose, and you just pick up your cards and play again. It's 15 minutes to play solo. Your first game might be 30, but it's so fast solo. That is what is so enjoyable, and you can just build so many decks and come up with so many ideas if that's your area. Or you can play those precons, and there's 43 heroes, and I don't know the number. Josh, Eric, anybody out there, if you know the number of villain scenarios, I don't know exactly what that is. You've got so much without ever building a deck. Sure, there's some things you can do to like pre-constructed decks to make them better, but they totally play fine, especially on standard. So, if you're looking to move towards expert, then the idea is that's for people who want to deck build or at least tweak those precons. Oh, there's 3 copies of a card that I can only have one in play, so I'm going to pull 2 of those. There's 36 villain scenarios and 43 champions. So if you're picking one every time, you got a lot of plays that you can get under your belt to change it up and whatnot, or the opposite. Pick your character. Oh my gosh, my character is totally Black Widow, and I'm going to build her in 4 different builds and play her over and over and over again, and through all those scenarios, and it's going to be so much fun and whatnot. So that is that. I also will say the campaigns aren't my favorite. I enjoy Rise of Red Skull because I can sit while my family's watching a movie and I can play through Rise of Red Skull. I enjoy that one immensely. But the other ones, I like to have the player interaction to kind of gain the benefits and talk through what makes the most sense. It's a big part of me, right? So that's a big part of me is what's key to understand. I generally prefer this. I think even when I played Gambit and Rogue as the precons, I did two-handed. But again, I'm playing that solo. So, and I said that about some of the other ones as well. So take it for what it is. Love Marvel Champions. It's amazing. There's more coming. We can't wait. It's going to be awesome. So there you go. Yeah, that's a great point. The new X-Men, they just really excite me to sit around a table with people or, the computer. I've really been shocked how much I've enjoyed playing games kind of through the internet. Has worked really well. All right, so there we go. Shock is done. Number 4. So this one might be unfair in some sense. I don't know. That sounds bad. I don't mean unfair, but like Marvel Champions for this. But so my next games are like a solo experience. That's where I really highlighted them. I think they really focus on that solo element and do a good job. Maybe one of them you could argue with me and flip flop. You find my reasoning acceptable. Thank you. So my number 4 is a game that I haven't finished yet. It is so good. I can't wait to finish it so I can start playing again. And that is Hoplomachus Victorum. So this game, I'm supposed to change pages. I didn't show anything on Marvel Champions, but pretty much on this channel, I don't think I need to do that. Oh my goodness, look at all the Hoplomachus. So all this other Hoplomachus, I believe, has solo stuff as well, but was like a gladiator drafting combat game, and Victorum is built around playing solo. So sadly, the other day, we started a game. Here's where it's so funny. I've actually never played this game solo, but it is a solo-only game. But every time I played it with Larry. So we got a chance to demo this. It is designed by the Carlson brothers, Josh and Adam, who make so many great things at Chip Theory Games, and then Logan Giannini, who is a huge Marvel Champions player, designs all those mats and things for us. And so actually from knowing Logan, I got a chance to get in on a demo of this game and played with Larry and myself. And they were like, wow, that was cool. You guys were playing with 2. Could you do that as well? And we're like, yeah, throw us a copy. We'll play it on camera. That's what we tried to do. And the internet at the portal crashed. So literally like that crashed. People could kind of get on their phones. I then went to order like DoorDash and I couldn't get the computer to work. Even for just things like that. So something was happening. So we continued to play. We were finishing Act 1. We played Act 2 almost all the way through. We might start at the Act 2 Primus fight, and we're hoping tomorrow. Larry actually has to go to the Nationals for indoor track. And so whenever he drives back from Boston, he's going to come straight to the store, and we're going to start playing tomorrow afternoon and try to finish up the campaign live. If it doesn't work out live, then we are going to just record our play. And that went over my head when I was so frustrated about the tech not working that like, hey, you don't have to play live, you can record. So we'll at least get that done. And if it does fail to do that, then I'll come back and I'll play an Act 1 with a new character, whatever setup I can. In fact, this room might work a little bit better space-wise. Are you doing good, Isabel? How are we doing? Say hi, Izzy. Say hi to everybody. This is Isabel, and she's sleepy. All right. She never gets to be on camera because I'm always upstairs. So, absolutely phenomenal game. You can see the playthrough. Honestly, what we did, we got through an hour and 40 minutes. It is 4 essentially 2-hour sessions. They're 12 weeks each. 12 weeks? Each act is 12 weeks, and a week is a turn. So in a turn, you're going to move to a location. You're going to fight in some kind of gladiatorial arena. There's different sporting events like King of the Hill, Capture the Flag, or there are bloodshed events where you're actually fighting kind of to the death. and you're going to pick one of those, and then you kind of get a mat, and you're taking your team, which includes your hero and other people you've recruited, and then you fight against them, and you're using chips for your health, and you're using dice that you can level up, and you're using various hero prowess abilities. And there are, I apologize if I get it wrong. I believe there's a picture of the book. There's 8 different champions. Actually, the reason I'm down here and I'm on my wife's computer, it's because all that stuff is still at the store. The game is set up. All my rig for going live is set up there because I didn't want to pack it up and bring it all home to only go back and set it up again. Um, it's phenomenal. He beat out Marvel Champions. Yeah, I mean, this one is designed specifically for solo play. So that is where it really rises up on my list of like, I really enjoy playing solo games, in that solo capacity. Where did I miss a game? Oh no. I just realized I missed a game. So I actually have 16 games. Here, I forgot to highlight one of these, so we'll have to put that in there as well. That's funny. I just noticed another game. Anyway, yeah, so that's Hoplomachus. You're playing over these acts. You have to fight a Primus at the end of each one. When you do those bloodshed events, you can level up your dice. So, like, you'll have a yellow die, which is a 1 in 3 chance of hitting, but you can level up to a blue die, which is 1 in 2, and green and black, and then red is an auto hit die, but they made a die, which I love, so you can roll your auto hit die. And just all sorts of wonderful choices you can make. There's 8 different heroes in the box. There's, I'm going to say 7. There's 7 different scions you can fight. So scions are going to put Banes in your bag that you're going to get different negative effects based on which scion that is, and then their fight is going to be different at the end. They're the ones you're trying to fight. The game is pretty easily pack up. Honestly, my equipment was harder to pack up than the game. The game has this amazing tray where you just kind of pull the cards and slide them into a slot in the box. Keep your dice, keep your upgrades. It's got all the little trays for chips, and it just says, oh, just throw all the chips you currently have in this thing and throw it in the box. Close that dice tray, roll up the mat, and you're good to go. You played your one session, you're going to pull it out. It's going to take you 3 minutes to set it up, and you're playing again. About a 2-hour session. The 12 weeks takes about 2 hours. We pushed 3 with talking through rules and being live before Crash. Well, yeah, we went about an hour past that video. So we'll get more up of that as soon as we can, whether it be live tomorrow. Cross my fingers. I think it's going to work. I think it was just a lot of people coming into the store. For whatever reason, our Tuesday nights have become our busiest nights at their store. So Tuesday is even busier than Fridays often, unless there's kind of a Magic pre-release or something like that. But our Tuesday nights have gotten very, very busy. We've got multiple role-playing groups going on, and we've got the My Hero Academia game, which I am running. So that was the other thing. We were running into that, having to end, so we were able to finish. But anyway, Hoplomachus Victorum has been phenomenal. I haven't had a chance to replay it, so it's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but we played this at Gen Con. I was like, this is my favorite game at Gen Con. I never got a chance to play it in 2022, so I never put it on my list for 2022. Here I can see it's listed as a 2023. I started to pontificate myself and not show you things. So here are the various chips that you have, and these are the different heroes that you can get. Kraken Lance, and where this one here, the Parthian. These are the Bane chips. And then you've got all these different arenas with different effects in them. That's the other part. This one has a trident you can pick up and throw, and Vesuvius is a volcano, so it can explode on you. And you can just see the gorgeous, gorgeous artwork. Here's some of the scions, the mats that come in there as well. These are all double-sided. Everything's easy to find. The rule book is very well done, although the rules are a lot. Look at this rating, 8.9. Wow. And here's kind of this game. Like, this is what we walked into when we got the demo. It was unbelievable. This mat laid out with this map down below. And here's a region where you can fight in, and all these chips are laid out. The game mat holds everything on it except this bin. These here are bonus dice that you can get. I don't have those, but you can get these like upgraded, heavier dice. This bin even holds the dice right here in front. It's not showing that. So everything fits on the mat except these prowess cards go off to the side that you can upgrade, and this bin right here, and then there's a bag. So I have just a straight black bag. So those are the only things that you need outside of this space. So even though this mat is large, it fits on a regular table. And then you're just adding this piece. So it actually doesn't take a ton of space. The box is big. Really, really cool game. I'm going to try to get an interview with Logan and tell you more about that game soon. So there you go. Yeah, so I'm going to sneak a game in here. And this is Warp's Edge. And I don't know, I see now it's written on my sheet. But man, let me tell you, there have been some great solo only games. This one I have a few plays on the channel. The most recent one was when I was trying to test moving to HD, and it was horrible. So you may have to go back a little bit to check out when I was playing this at the portal. But Warp's Edge is from Scott Alms and Renegade Game Studios. It is part of their Solo Hero series. So this is my 3.5. I'm good. Josh says, I can't wait to hear what's better than this. I love talking about games. Like, I feel like sometimes negative or Marvel Champion stuff or whatever, it gets out like that. But I love games. You can see, even though I'm saying, like, solo isn't my thing, I'm talking about these solo games with such media. I will tell you the crazy part with Hoplomachus when we got off camera is Mike from the store actually joined us, and we were playing 3 players on a solo game. That's how much we were enjoying it. So there's that. All right, let's move on to Warp's Edge. So Warp's Edge is a bag-building space-faring game. Again, variety in that you get a ship, and then you get a boss that you fight, and you get these gorgeous chips that go in a bag, and you're drawing these out. So it's really like a deck-building game, and you're playing these chips to either gain kind of evasion from enemies, or these lasers are the red ones. This energy is kind of a currency that you can use for special abilities, and ways to purchase new chips. So you can spend these things to purchase new chips from the bins that are over here. And you're laying these enemies out in front of you, and essentially you have to go through the whole enemy deck. Once you get through the enemy deck, then you can fight the main boss ship. But you probably won't defeat it. You may not even get through the enemies. So when you go through this stack, I think you get one turn, and then you warp back in time, kind of. You reset the deck. The damage stays on the enemy. I think you go to warp speed. I don't know if it's warping time. And you go through the deck again, and you fight the villain, and then you have a certain number of rounds against each boss ship in which you can fight them. What's cool is you start your bag with, I believe, 10 chips, but often you have 25 or more chips in your bag on your third run. So you are like mega upgrading. You're getting tons of new chips. You're removing some of the chips from your bag. You're adding a whole bunch, and oh, that's what it is. It's not when you go through the stack, it's when you go through your bag. That's the end of a warp. So then that third one, when you've got 27 chips or whatever in your bag, you've got a whole bunch to go through. And it's super fun. I don't know where Warp's Edge, it should probably actually be lower than Marvel Champions, but it is solo only. I just forgot it. So hey, bonus 16 games. It's literally written on the bottom of my paper here, and I never gave it a number. So that was my bad with that. See, Eric, thanks for joining us. All right, so that is Warp's Edge. You can check this out. I just suggested to somebody who's in the store, and they've been playing it and really enjoying it as well. So, and then there's an expansion, Anomaly. So that will give me the excuse to get this out. The trick is, the expansion I have has cardboard chips, and the game has these chips. So I haven't figured out how to incorporate those, but I think for the most part, the chips that are in there are just these yellow ones, so I could just use a different letter and then say, oh, it's this ability instead. So I'm probably fine on that front. But yeah, that one's going to come in at 3.5 because I made a mistake. Warp's Edge, a solo-only game. There's a whole story element. There's a whole bunch of bosses and everything. There was like a little bonus expansion with the original crowdfunded game, and it added some pretty tough villains. All right. Number 3 is going to be from this past year. This was one of my favorite games. Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. Oops. Batman miniatures game? No. Batman, what is it called? Returns. Is it Returns? Batman, The Dark Knight Returns. So I did a play of this relatively recently. This is from Daryl Andrews, Morgan Dontonville, and from Cryptozoic. And this is a solo only. Again, there's a 2-player verse mode in there. Wow. Like, this is what I think of when I think of a solo game. It is a 4-chapter solo Batman game. You use a marker to write on the board, not a permanent marker, an erasable marker. And when you finish a chapter, boom, you leave the board exactly as it is. That's actually the same in Hoplomachus. but with all your markings and all the changes you've made. So early on, if you're like, oh, that won't be so punishing, that ability is going to come back every single time you play the game, and it's going to kind of haunt you. Like, oh no, we have to add a monstrous enemy here. You're moving around the city. You're making new paths for yourself to get through the city. You're recruiting allies to help you. You're going back to the Wayne Manor and getting various vehicles that show up. You're upgrading your dice. The dice are so cool in this. In fact, why am I not showing you the board? You can also check my play. I had a pretty big glare issue because the board is, it has a surface so that you can write on it with marker. But here's the board, and you actually draw in and make new paths, and then it's just erasable, and it comes off over time, and whatnot. So it's not a big deal. I'm so sorry for the coughing. And then you're placing these chips out on the board. These are the enemy tokens. And when you get three, so you have cops, and you have, I think they're called monstrous enemies, maybe just monsters. And then you've got media, you've got like reporters. And if all three of them get there, you actually get a riot going if they fill up all the spaces, and you have to deal with the riots and move around. And then you're going to fight a different villain in each of them. You've got these cards, so you can see each of the chapters here. So Batman's going to have different abilities in each of them. Again, you can see that variety thing, which I'm huge on. And then I need to find the dice. I have to show you the dice. So the dice are Batarang dice. They're essentially D4s. There is also a miniatures set that comes with the game. I don't have the miniature version. I have the standees version, which I'm perfectly fine with in lowering my entry cost. Where are these dice? Okay, here's various dice that you can roll, enemy dice and other things, but then you get your own dice. Show me the Batarang dice. Here they are. So you get these cool Batarang dice. And so they're either going to block, or they're going to POW, which deals damage, or they're going to ram, which deals you a damage and the enemies a damage. And the enemies have dice, and it's a really neat system in combat where the enemies roll their dice and you roll yours, and when you deal a damage, you remove a die from their pool, and then another round of combat. When you get them down to no dice, you've defeated all the enemies, and you've won that battle. But you may have taken damage, and then whenever you hit with a die, you actually have to move it off into a cooldown section, and you can't use that die. So you're going through all your various dice, which feels like the tools in Batman's tool belt, right? It's kind of that idea of what you're seeing and what you're having there. The other really cool part of this game is at the beginning of every round, essentially, you are drawing cards, and you're like picking what you want. So you'll get a series of cards. 8 is what pops into my head. No, it's 12. And in groups of 3, you look at them and you pick one card that'll have an event. See, I should not be trying to do it this way. I should be showing you the cards. Why do I put my hand in front of my mouth? Then you can't hear me talk. Oh, they don't have a lot of pictures of the cards here, huh? Show me the cards! Oh, wow, that's really interesting that they don't have pictures of the cards. All right, well, you'd have to go and watch my video or somebody else's to see the cards. We saw the Batman cards, but we don't see the player cards. All right, so anyway, the player cards have kind of an effect that's going to happen, like an event on the bottom, and then they are either detective Batman cards or they are combat cards, fight cards, I think they're called. So the fight cards will go to the fight deck, the detective ones will go to your hand, which is unlimited, although you lose certain of them at the end of each one, so you have to use them or lose them to some extent, but you can use them to kind of manipulate the board. So if things are getting out of hand, you can be like, oh, remove a reporter from somewhere on the board adjacent to another reporter, or move a monster from one location to another, so you can kind of spread them out a little bit. So you can do some of that kind of detective work to bring in Batman. Anyway, it's 4 chapters. It's phenomenal. There's really cool villains. There's a cool ending to it, so I won't talk about that, so it's not spoiled. And it's not a terrible price point. If you want those minis, that's like an extra box for the special edition, but that's really what comes in that. So if you get kind of this retail version, although retail also sells the minis, so they gave that box, you can get that as well. But it strikes me that it's something like $65 for the box, which again, it's all relative, right? To buying that, kind of family game off the shelf at Target versus these hobby games, but it's pretty reasonably priced, and it is absolutely amazing. I'm a Batman fan. I'm not super obsessed with Batman and comics and all those kind of things. But yeah, this blew me away. This is what I want in a solo game almost exactly. All right, so then my number two is Spirit Island. So there's pretty good argument. This is the one I felt like people could argue with me about Champions because Spirit Island has a similar issue with playing it solo, in that it's a lot tougher solo, so you use two boards and whatnot. So I probably should have Marvel Champions higher. I was trying to highlight some of those games that are specifically solo specific, so you could flip flop these two, but this will play very well on your first several plays. There's a few that are tougher. So Spirit Island, I see talked about a lot, even in the Marvel Champions discords and things. But this is designed by Eric Roos and from Greater Than Games, and is expanded with Jagged Alliance. And is there another one that came out? There's like the Flame and Feather, and then there was an expansion in between, Branch and Claw, that had other abilities. So this is really cool because it's kind of like reverse Catan and it's co-op. So instead of settling the island, you're trying to keep the settlers off the island. Go away. And you're trying to use your different spirit powers and abilities. There's a deck of cards with all these powers. Each player gets one of these boards, although you're working on each other's boards. They make up the island. You just kind of start on a specific board. And then what's really neat is every round you are removing these discs off of your specific player board. Player boards. Nope. This is somebody showing us how to store the game. You're removing these discs off your player boards to upgrade your abilities. So that's super fun. That's a great view of the game. Look at this on a table double stack. That's awesome. All right. So you're removing these discs, and these discs are going to tell you how much energy you get and how many cards you can play each turn. So as you level up, as you go through a round, you get stronger and stronger, your powers. And then the cards have all of these symbols on them, different like nature symbols. And if you get enough of those, you can trigger special abilities. So as you draft cards from the other decks that come out, the major powers and the minor powers, you get different things. And then you're basically trying to maneuver. What's super interesting, what I love about this game, but it makes it very abstract, is that most of the abilities, especially the lower powered abilities, they affect the enemies in kind of an indirect, not really an abstract way, but an indirect way. So instead of saying, zap all these enemies, breathe fire and they're dead, or burn down their buildings, it'll say, like, push their buildings to an adjacent location, or the Dahan are definitely the most interesting part. They're these little huts, and they're like the local people that will fight with you. And you can move them in, and then they will fight, but they can also take damage and deal damage back. And you're trying to control this. The main enemy of the game is going to be Blight, which are these little tokens, these gray tokens. Up here, you'll see some. And in the bigger game, you've got this. They also made the, I forgot the other expansion, Horizons of Spirit Island, which was available, I think, only in Target for currently. And I played through that, and you could see that one. It's not really a step down. So that's the biggest shocker with this Horizons of Spirit Island, is it's still a really heavy game. If this is a 4, that one's a 3.5. So they didn't knock off a significant enough ability, I don't think, to get people into the game, because I think they were focused on making those spirits playable. So I forgot about that one. And then you're getting these cards, and then you're trying to generate fear. And as you get fear, you get different fear levels, and you get bonuses from these fear cards. And if you generate enough fear, then you will kind of decrease what you need to do. So eventually it's like, oh, if there's only the large buildings on the, if all the large buildings, which are cities, have been removed from the island, you win. So you don't have to remove all the people. You scare them off. At this point, there's been enough crazy things going on that everybody just leaves. And you're drawing these various cards. You can up the abilities, the difficulty. You can have empires, which have different abilities as they come in. So the Spanish and the French and the Swedish and the English and the Russians and the Germans and whatever they are. And they'll add various abilities that they do as well. So that will up your difficulty. And the branch and claw ones adds these other tokens that you put on the board. There's like snake. Actually, there's 4 different tokens. Now I remember, so I'm not going to go through them all. But they add things like make your characters more powerful, or prevent them from building or growing, because they're going to try to like expand on the island every time. Amazing, amazing game. Super well done. One of my favorite games. When I think of playing solo, this is on that heavier end. It does probably work better with 2, and so my thing about Marvel Champions probably goes out the window. But whatever. I'm just trying to highlight 15 games, and I discovered I highlighted 16. So welcome. So that is Spirit Island. Anything else I should show you? Maybe some of these powers would be neat to see. Look at that original artwork. And here's somebody on an island. All right. Now we got a cat as well. There may be a cat dog fight. No, she ran away. Oh, show me a spirit. Here we go. So here are some of the spirits. I still have some people with me. If anybody has questions in chat, please let me know. Or if you have questions about the games behind me, I'll go to my larger one when I'm done. Lightning Swift Strike. So you can see they're going to increase their energy as they go through. They're going to, and everything's really well spelled out. They're going to have this many cards they can play, and then they can trigger any of these abilities that they get to. They tend to add. So you'll see this one actually says destroy. um, and then they changed the iconography at some point. I haven't seen this iconography before. Maybe they changed it. But then it says instead destroy this, instead destroy that, instead also destroy this, right? So they chain really well. And then this is actually what you do at the start of your turn. So you get to choose to place discs or gain a new card or gain some more energy. Place one disc, place two discs. So you get to choose one of these to do at the start of your turn. Anyway, it's an amazing, amazing game. If you like card games, this has it in spades. If you like cooperative games, we're talking solo, but if you like cooperative games where you don't, it's hard to tell the other player what to do, this is that game because there's just so much going on in your head. It's hard to do that. And my favorite solo game of all time is Mage Knight. You see it everywhere. You see so many people talking about it. The Mage Knight board game. Here's the Ultimate Edition that includes all the other elements. The designers are Vlada Chvátil, Paul Grogan from the Gaming Rules channel, and Phil Pettifer. And this is published by WizKids as well. And yeah, you can see Vlada made this list twice with Through the Ages and with this. Did a great job. And this is a game where you take a variety of heroes or mage knights and you're battling through and you've got tiles you're moving over. It's really an adventure game and you're trying to take back these cities and fight off the enemies, and it's deck building and you're rolling dice and you're trying to generate. So you can either generate the ability on top, that is in German, or you can spend crystals to generate the abilities on the bottom, or mana, and you generate mana. Look at all this. Now the languages. You're generating mana from either the dice that get rolled at the start of the round, and the when you play solo, you play a bot, and the bot is so interesting because they're going to draft tiles away from you but give you things, and then they're kind of like your timer, and they're leveling up so they can do more things, and they're drafting cards from the center. So you have all these different cards. You've got advanced spells, and you've got other spells, and you've got normal and elite allies that you can recruit to go to your group, and you're getting these cards in your deck for blood where you're going to take damage. And there's lots of really kind of interesting, like you have a health total, you have like a health threshold, almost like defense. And so if I have a health of 3 and I take 5 damage, well, then I say, okay, after the first 3, I take 1, and then I take another card to defend my next 3. So you're getting 2 blood cards. So you've got to figure that out. And then there's just a variety of abilities and ways you can go about it. You can shoot long range. You can hit first strike beforehand. You can get these spells and black mana that upgrade things. And then what's really cool is I love this version, but they also have a Star Trek version that Andrew Parks helped design. And I love the Star Trek version too. It is essentially a skin. Almost every power is shared. But I really enjoy that version too, which just gives me more characters that I can play as. You're playing as ships, so you play as both versions of the Enterprise. And there's a Klingon warbird and a Romulan. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm so sorry that I can't remember all the ships. And the little there's the fighter ship from Deep Space Nine as well. And my Star Trek knowledge goes out the window all of a sudden, so people are going to jump in. But yeah, this game is epic. It is awesome. This Ultimate Edition is, it's a little bit pricey, probably around $100, $120. It's kind of hard to find, but it is so cool. And wow, look at this person like tripped it out with all this terrain. So it does come with these 3D models, and it has this clicks feature. But if clicks is something that has turned you off, don't worry. The clicks is just a way to track your health and your current statistics and the statistics of the places that you're going to fight. There's a wide variety of abilities. There's a wide variety of scenarios and difficulties. There's so much you can add to this game. There's other heroes. I feel like they're a little bit on the low end, like, again, not including Star Trek. um, I feel like you don't have a lot of heroes. Like, it's probably 6 with the expansions, but they have a total flavor. When you level up, you're getting a little token. You're getting to add more characters to your party that you can have, that you can work with. You are adding in, you're increasing your health and your hand size. Like, you really feel like you leveled up, and whatnot. And then there's a whole variety of like dungeons and towers and camps and monasteries. Like, every building has different rules. It is absolute rules overload. So the places to go are Ricky Royal, teaches the game really well. That's kind of the like famous Ricky Royal video that he did that was really good. And Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire also made an incredible video. She wanted to have a whole series of Mage Knight videos for people to learn, and she did a great job. So you can learn from those videos and play through. The game gives you a walkthrough one that I had learned from that I thought worked pretty well. But again, you can see this is very heavy. So this is a game that I'm pulling out once a year, and I'm playing through it. I don't think there's really campaigns, but they added a whole scenario with a boss who comes after you. I think that was one that Paul was really involved in helping to create, and it's incredible. It's so much fun. So this actually can play with more players. You can see it says it plays up to 5, but like in my mind, this is a solo only game. It's generally fun to play cooperative with another person, but my goodness, PvP with 5 people, it's a whole different game. You're avoiding other players, they're stealing things from out under you. Your abilities are all over the map. Your ability to score and control and do what you want to do is so different from solo. And then just teaching that number of people and having that number of people work through everything. So I really, in my mind, I think of this as a solo game, but I still think of this as the best solo experience I've ever had. It's so cool. You can see from my list that story isn't a huge factor. Something like Batman The Dark Knight Returns is probably the highest up on my list. So those aren't big elements. The gameplay is something that I'm really looking for. So certainly, I don't have dungeon crawlers. I don't have Frosthaven on this list. Marvel Champions was low on there and probably could have moved up a little bit, but there's some notable games that like I don't play the same way. So or I tend to play them multiplayer. I don't play them solo. Is not always my goal. So there you go. There are my favorite 15 games, 16 because I put a bonus because I forgot Warp's Edge, and I apologize there on Warp's Edge, that I enjoy playing solo. So like I said, solo is not my preferred method, but I wanted to walk you through some of the games and maybe hear about some things. So if there's something you heard about and people are here live with me, they want to ask, if you have questions about any of the games behind me, I thought it was kind of fun to have those there. I know it's kind of typical of board game streamers to have their board games behind them. I usually don't. So there was that element. We can sneak up to the top here. You can see this is kind of my rare set of games. I've got Queen's Gambit here, the StarCraft game, and then on top there I've got the what is that one? That's Star Wars Epic Duels, which is now unmatched by Restoration Games, but that was the original version that Rob had designed with Hasbro. And then up here, this one's cool because my friend works for Riot Games, and so got me a copy of Mechs and Minions. Is that what it's called? I don't know. It just says League of Legends on there. I think it's called Mechs and Minions. So that one's kind of neat. My Return to Dark Tower is up there as well. So there's some cool games there. So yeah, you can let me know if you're watching this afterward, kind of what some of your favorite solo games are. Did I miss something on my list? You can call me out on Marvel Champions because it's certainly something that I play here on the channel all the time. And when I thought about it with Spirit Island, I was like, yeah, it probably wasn't really fair to put it there. But I wanted to highlight those ones that were really solo play specific, which maybe really Spirit Island should move down in those top 4, should be the others. So a lot of people do 10. I decided to do 15. And arguably, then I ended up doing 16. So hopefully that is an enjoyable list for everybody. I'm going to eat some lunch because I'm hungry. And my dog is getting antsy here. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for watching afterward. If you enjoyed this, you can let me know. You can thumb up the video. It helps a whole bunch. And you can subscribe to the channel if you want me to do more of these live lists with BGG. Let me know, and I can do some more of those. I do have an upcoming podcast that I can announce shortly, so you can hear reviews of games, specifically some newer games soon that will be happening. So in this month. So we'll look forward to that. Awesome. If you can, join us tomorrow for Hoplomachus. It might fail on our end, and I apologize ahead of time, in which case we will film it and I'll get that video up over the weekend. And then I'll try to get an interview as well when I can. All right. So thanks, everybody. And we'll have some more Marvel Champions once I can move my equipment back home. But we wanted to do that Hoplomachus. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow. Till then, my name is the Brandt, and I hope you step into the portal.